Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And I was like, what the hell is Thule? I was like, I can't deal with this. I literally had a mental breakdown about Thule. Moving on to Queen of Air and Darkness. So, have the most to say about this book. I have some qualms with Queen of Air and Darkness. Most of them having to do with Thule / Thule. Like I said, I was spoiled for this shit because for some reason I didn't know what order to read like the little short story novellas in, and I read, or rather kind of skimmed, because I wasn't at this point in my Shadowhunters journey. Okay, I had just read, I think I read the first or second Last Hours book, and then I wanted to get some of the backstories for the characters, which I found out were in the other short story collections. Like, I know there's a couple in Shadowhunter Academy and Ghost of the Shadow Market, and so I was like, oh god, I guess I have to like kind of skim through these, because I was like, I'm not gonna get so into this lore that I have to read every single story word for word. Like, I'm just gonna skim and find the ones that are relevant to me. Okay, this is what I was thinking at this time. And so I was skimming through all of the stories in Ghost of the Shadow Market, and somehow I got to the last story and started reading that a little bit. And then I got intrigued, so I kept reading, even though I realized it wasn't relevant to Last Hour's characters. I was still intrigued. I don't know, actually, if I had already read Lady Midnight. I don't think I had. Well, like I said, I read it like back in the day, but this was before I reread it. So I was reading the last one. I don't remember what it's called. Forever Fallen or something like that. And spoilers for that, if you haven't read that. But basically, it's a very cute story. It's half cute story, half horrible story. The cute story has to do with Tessa, Jem, and Kit and like becoming a family, and it's very pure and wholesome, and it was my favorite thing ever. But it's like intertwined with this story about fucking Janice, and I didn't know who the fuck Janice was because I had not read the Dark Artifices yet, and so I was like, who the hell is this evil Jace? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And I was like, what the hell is Thule? I was like, I can't deal with this. I literally had a mental breakdown about Thule. And when I say I had a mental breakdown, I'm not kidding. Like, I knew it was coming. I had a mini mental breakdown before I even got into the series, and I had a crisis about whether or not I even wanted to read the series because I was so appalled by the concept of Thule, of this alternate universe. I was like, no, I don't want anything to do with that storyline. That sounds horrible. I don't want to introduce this idea of parallel universes. That just complicates things. It makes things too fucking weird. No. But then I was like, God, fine, I guess. So then, you know, I read it. I was happy that Thule didn't show up in Lord of Shadows. Reading Queen of Air and Darkness, I know it's coming. I know it's coming. But then we get to Thule, and then I have a fucking mental breakdown. And I literally had to stop reading. And because I had no one to vent to, and it was like 1 a.m., I just recorded like a 25-minute long voice recording of myself just venting about Thule and how pissed off I was. But basically, I was just, I don't know, I wasn't having it. Now I've gotten to a point where I'm almost at an acceptance stage with Thule. I've almost reached an acceptance stage with Thule. I almost can see the value of it. But at the time, I was just like, why? Why? Why do we have to have this alternate timeline plotline? Like, I hate it. I don't know, something about alternate timeline, alternate universe plotlines, unless it's the whole focus of the book, like unless it's the whole premise of a series or a book is that there's multiple different timelines. To just like throw that in there, it just feels like, oh my god, like it just feels like we're opening up so many cans of so many worms, and I don't have the energy for it. I don't. So that was my biggest concern with Thule. However, once we got into it, I was like, okay, I guess this is kind of interesting. But the thing is, it felt like a different book. Like, it felt like another book within this book. It felt like a whole different genre of book. It was like this post-apocalyptic survival kind of story, which was interesting. I was kind of into it. But I was like, I feel like this should almost be a separate story. And I wonder if Cassandra Clare has any plans to like make like a Thule series, or like a Thule side book, or even like some Thule short stories, because I feel like that could actually be interesting. And considering how much Cassandra Clare likes to milk this world, I feel like she could milk a lot out of Thule. But I didn't like having it in the middle of this other book, because it's like, it just felt so disorienting, and like, I don't know, it was just like we were in one fucking book and now we're in another book, and like, what the hell, now we gotta go back to this book. It was just a lot. But I feel like I've kind of come to terms. I did like Thule Libby. I thought she was pretty badass, but it was a lot for me to deal with, and it was compounded by the fact that we had to deal with Mr. You Are in the Cage Julian this entire fucking book. Julian and Queen of Air and Darkness pissed me off so much. And I say this as a Julian stan, okay? Like I said, I don't stan his actions, but I stan him as a person, as a character. Oh, this book. When he went to Magnus to have this spell put on him, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, dude, this is not it. This is not it. This is not a good idea. I was like, what the hell? I think the note I wrote in here was like, what kind of asshole Xanax pill did Magnus give Julian? Because he starts acting like an asshole at his sister's wedding. Wedding? I meant funeral. Oh my god. Hopefully everyone's here has already read it, because that would have been a whiplash of a spoiler. Funeral. Also, I just realized I didn't even talk about the ending of Lord of Shadows. It was like the most significant traumatic part. But I was also spoiled for that, so it didn't like shock me that much. Like, I knew it was coming. But I still really liked, like, I liked it. Like, obviously it hurt me, but I liked it. Like, I thought it was done well. And what pissed me off about Queen of Air and Darkness is we have this theme of like grief, right? And I feel like we didn't deal with it the way I wanted to deal with it. Because instead of seeing Julian just completely fall apart and break down, which we were starting to, and I was excited because I like it. I like it when we see characters like just completely fall apart and break down. And I was like, yes, we see that a little bit in the beginning, but then for some reason, because he's breaking down, he and Emma decide that they need to have like grief sex, and then they start to, and then their Parabatai rune starts fucking burning. So, of course, now we have to go to Magnus, who's fucking ill right now, and we have to bother him and ask him to give us a spell to turn off our goddamn emotions. Worst decision you could have fucking made. So, Julian, I like to call emotionless robot Julian You Are in the Cage Julian, because that shit also killed me when he fucking, this is what I mean when I say he is a dramatic ass motherfucker. He could have just written himself like a sticky note. He could have just written in Sharpie or something. He had to take a knife and carve into his arm this phrase, "You are in the cage," because it's something that the Seelie Queen said to him, which was actually a pretty good quote. Basically, like, if you can't feel sorrow and you can't feel joy, then you're like in a cage, and you are in that cage, whatever. So the "you are in the cage" line, you know what I mean. I did like that quote. I thought it was good. I liked the metaphor of it. But it's just such a dramatic ass thing to do, to carve it into your skin. So that when he went back from Thule, because of course in Thule is the only time when the spell wears off. When we come back from Thule, he's back in the fucking cage. And so we had to just, oh god. Luckily, we don't stay in the cage for very long post-Thule, okay? Like how with this series, we have like a pre-Thule and a post-Thule. Also, I'm switching back and forth between saying Thule and Thule, because I still don't know which one. But post-Thule, Thule, Julian, we don't stay in the cage for very long, thankfully. Magnus gets his strength back, thanks to Thule Tessa, who told us how to do that and get the water from Lake Lynn, and now everyone's good again. So, thankfully, Julian gets his emotion back. But I was still kind of mad because I feel like we didn't really go through the grief process I wanted to go through, because instead of really just like falling apart, like facing all of that pain, we had just total denial, right? Just total zero emotions. And then we had all of the emotions in Thule with another version of Livy, which was interesting, like I said, but it was also a little weird. And I feel like there were parts of this book that felt a little like, I wrote emotionally stunted in my notes, because I felt like, I mean, literally it's emotionally stunted because Julian has turned his emotions off, but emotionally stunted in that I feel like there are places we could have gone deeper than we did. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that I had a lot of issues with the point of view of this book, the point of view sections of this book, because we were never in the point of view that I wanted to be in, which was really annoying, especially every time we're getting some Kieran character development. We never had the Kieran point of view. What the hell is up with that? We had to read about Kieran from the point of view of Perfect Diego, who I'm sorry, I don't really care for Diego or Jaime. I don't really care for their whole family drama. I couldn't follow it. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. What is their family heirloom? What are their family secrets? I don't know. I don't care. I wasn't interested in them. And we had to read about Kieran from Diego's point of view for some of it, and then we were reading about him from Mark and Christina's point of view. Also, Mark, Christina, and Kieran, kind of iconic throuple, but I feel like I feel like there was a lot of like redundant drama with the development of this throuple. I feel like every time they were together, they were having the same conversations of like, oh, I love you, but I also love you, but I can't love both of you, and this isn't gonna work. Yes, it will. No, it won't. Like, I feel like they were repeating these conversations a lot, and I was like, dude, just get together. Like, it's so easy. You all love each other. Just be together. Like, it's not hard. So that bothered me a little bit. Also, random ass thing that bothered me is when all three of them were in Ferry. They were trying to rescue Emma and Julian, and Mark, they find another fucking rebel. Mark just drinks this fucking fairy juice. I'm like, Mark, didn't you get on Christina in the last book for drinking that fairy juice? Why are you drinking it again? What the hell is up with that? And of course he like fucking passes out because it was magical fairy. I'm like, do y'all know nothing? I feel like that's rule number 1 about going to Ferry. Don't eat or drink anything. Like, just fucking stupid. I feel like that was a little bit of a stupid plot point. But anyway, Kieran, I really wanted more Kieran I wanted some Kieran POV. We didn't get it. I feel like we could have had a lot more emotional content if we had gotten a Kieran POV, especially after the fucking reflection pool. That shit was interesting. That reflection pool had me thinking. I was like, why don't we get everyone in this pool? I was honestly like, I feel like some of these characters could benefit from this. I was like, Julian, you want to take a dip? Because I think you might need it. I mean, it probably would have fucked him up more, but like, I feel like this pool would be useful if it like if it didn't just show you the bad shit that you did, but if it also showed you like the good shit. Like, if it was balanced out, I feel like that'd be very useful for people to just gain some self-awareness, you know? Just gain some self-awareness, get some character growth. But I also feel like this pool could be an interesting like instrument of justice. Like, I feel like they could use this pool to like punish people, which may be a little bit unethical, but I don't know, we could give it a try. Like, why don't we just dip the whole cohort in there, you know? Just so that they can feel a little bit of their own medicine. That was one thing that was interesting about this book. I did like the kind of political turn that it took. The villains of this series weren't really that consistent. Like in the first book we had Malcolm, second book Malcolm gets killed by Annabelle and Annabelle becomes a villain, but then Annabelle was kind of like underwhelming in the third book. Like she's on the cover and like the name Queen of Air and Darkness is supposed to refer to her, but I feel like she was barely in it, and I feel like she had like almost no effect on the story. Like, am I wrong? And we don't really know that much about her. We don't really understand her motivations. So I didn't really understand her as a villain. But the villain of this book kind of became like the cohort, and like Zara. Like, fuck that bitch Zara. So, I don't know, that was kind of interesting. But it did kind of bother me that the villains weren't that consistent. Like, I kind of wish Malcolm hadn't died so easily. Like, I mean, he died twice. Like, I wish that Annabelle hadn't killed him right away, because I think it would have been interesting to see them, like, working together in some way, or, like, kind of see what their dynamic was, because it was very unclear what Annabelle's motivations were at all. Like, she was just there. She just killed Livy and Robert for, like, no reason. And then she's like, "Ooh, I didn't mean to." It's like, bitch, like, what is your deal? What is your deal? Oh, the fucking black book, the fucking black volume of the dead, the fact that Julian somehow managed to take pictures of the black volume of the dead with his iPhone, which he did, I remember, in Lord of Shadows, I think, but he did it when he was like having a conversation with Annabelle that lasted like 5 minutes, and I'm like, how quickly are you taking pictures, and how good quality of these pictures? Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to take pictures of a book with your phone, but like, you gotta hold it still, you gotta focus it, you gotta take multiple tries to like get it right. Sometimes you gotta take multiple pictures of the same page. It's like, you're telling me you took pictures of an entire book? How big is this book? How many fucking pages is it? You're telling me you took pictures of this entire book and fucking printed it at Office Max. There was some funny Office Max jokes in here where they were like, a skilled calligrapher named Office Max. I was like, oh my god. But like, now I have a question, like, are these photos on the cloud? Like, are these on the fucking iCloud? Can anyone like hack into your phone and like find these pictures? Because Ty had the pictures on his phone, so they must have been on some fucking cloud, and Ty threw his phone in the water, but still, like, they're on the cloud. I feel like the black volume of the dead is on the cloud, and that's kind of concerning, you know? Like, maybe we should just put it on like fucking WikiLeaks or something at this point. Like, just put it out there on the internet. Speaking of the black volume of the dead, we have this whole necromancy plot with Ty and Kit. Ty's trying to bring Libby back from the dead, of course. But tell me why, like, this also made no sense to me. Malcolm had to murder 13 people in order to bring his lover back from the dead. Whereas Ty is like, oh no, there's a way to do it without murdering anybody. And I'm like, what? Do you think if there was, you don't think Malcolm would have tried that? You think he would have skipped straight to murder? Like, I'm sure he would have tried the other non-murderous way first. And the fact that Ragnar is like, or someone is like, says, well, he had her body, which is why he tried it the way that she did it. But I'm like, okay, but y'all don't have a body. And I feel like if you don't have the person you're trying to raise from the dead's body, I feel like if you don't have the body, it should require more murder than if you do have the body. Like, if you already have the body, it should require less effort. So it should take less murder for you to bring someone back from the dead if you already have their body, but they didn't have the body. But I was like, why is it easier? Like, I guess it's not easier because it's apparently this very unstable magic that rips a hole in some universe or some shit. I don't know. But it didn't make sense to me. I was like, why is there another way and that doesn't involve murder when it seemed like murder was the only way? But this way that doesn't involve murder still apparently fucks a lot of shit up. And we're gonna see the fallout of that, I'm sure. But Anyway, like I said, I'm obsessed with Kit, and I'm obsessed with Kit and Ty, and so that was one of the pros of Queen of Air and Darkness. The ending, I was like, baby, Kit, you had so many opportunities to stop him, and you waited until the last minute. But then he tells him that he loves him, and then Ty is like, just taken aback, or he's I don't know, he just doesn't respond because he's too overwhelmed with other like emotions. So then Ty is like so embarrassed that he just fucking moves to a different country with Jim and Tessa because he's like, I can't go back and face, like, I can't see my crush after I embarrass myself like this. And I relate to that, I do, but it's just like, boy. Anyway, I'm obsessed with Kit. I'm very excited to see what happens in the Wicked Powers. Climax of Queen of Air and Darkness, probably the last thing I'm going to talk about. I loved it. I loved how they turned into these big glowing giants. But the thing that just like was so good is when the whole family lines up and is like saying like how much they love them and all of this, and oh, I wanted to cry. I didn't cry, like I wish I could have cried. I don't know why. I think I was too like frustrated with everything else to like conjure up the tears, too emotionally exhausted. But it was a very emotional scene. I kind of wish we had gotten to see it from Emma and Julian's point of view as they were giants. Like I kind of wanted to know what it was like to be a glowing giant and then to like see your family like talking to you. Like I think that would have been interesting if we could have gotten into their point of view at some point in that, again with the point of view issue I'm having with this book. But I think that would have been interesting. But yeah, it was just like so like heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time, and Tabby was like, carry me, Julian. I was like losing my fucking shit. So yeah, I think the ending with the Parabatai curse, there's still kind of some questions we didn't really fully answer, like why and how and what. It wasn't entirely clear how that worked, like why was the family able to stop it. I saw a theory that was like it was because of the Familia's rune that Julian drew on them. That was like the anchor that like kept them there. But he didn't draw one on Emma, did he? So like how did it work on her? It was kind of like a convenient ending, like it just, the curse burned away, they're no longer Parabatai. So I will say that it felt a little convenient, but I wasn't mad about it because like I knew that they weren't gonna die because I already knew they were still alive after this series. So it wasn't like I was expecting like a big tragic ending, and I'm kind of glad it wasn't because I do like a happy ending, and we already had a tragic ending with Lord of Shadows, so I'm satisfied with the ending, but I still have some unanswered questions basically. And we got the Malik wedding at the end. That was fun. I was a little sad that like Tessa wasn't really there. Like she and Kit and Jem showed up at like the last minute, but like they weren't there at the party. And I guess it's because Kit doesn't want to be there, but I'm like, Tessa should be there. Like Magnus is her friend, and Jem, like they're friends. Like they should be at their fucking wedding. I was a little bit mad about that. I was like, hello, like y'all are just gonna spy from like the distance. Like y'all aren't gonna go congratulate them. Like what is this? But anyway, it was cute. I did like seeing the Mortal Instruments characters in this series. I definitely like older versions of them better. I like older Jace a lot more than I like younger Jace, so that was fun to read about. I kept hoping that one of them would, like, whenever Julian was in the fucking cage, I was like, someone needs to give this man some advice. And then another thing, I've been reading Ghost of the Shadow Market, and there's a lot, you know, told from the point of view of Jem or Brother Zachariah, and there's like a couple of stories where Jem is just like waxing poetic about like how awful it is to not have emotions and not be able to feel as he once felt and all this shit. And I was like, Jem, where the fuck were you when Julian was going through this shit? Like you needed, and Jem is always giving unsolicited advice to people. Especially when he was Brother Zachariah in Ghost of the Shadow Market. He is always giving these bitches unsolicited advice. And I I'm like, where was your unsolicited advice when Julian fucking needed you? Where was it? Where was it? I don't like Jace with the beard. Because there was a point where we find Jace and it's mentioned that he has a beard now, and I'm like, ew, no. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like Jace with a beard. But yeah, I did like Jace in this book. He was a good presence. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I really enjoyed the series. I'm very excited for the Wicked Powers. I'm also nervous because, like I said, I still don't know how to feel about Thule, and I have a feeling Thule is going to be a part of our lives in the Wicked Powers. And Janice, God. I have some issues with Janice too, but I might save that for another video. I think that's all I'm going to say for this. Let me know your thoughts, please. I would love to hear them, love to talk about who's your favorite character in this series, your favorite ship, favorite part of the series, favorite book. Just tell me all about it. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'm sure I'll do more videos related to the Shadowhunter Chronicles and other books that I read. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you again sometime very soon. Goodbye.